Then write a comprehensive article with relevant images. Now I have comprehensive information, let me write the article and generate relevant images for each major topic. Now let me write the comprehensive article with images. The Democratic Alliance's funding web, where the money comes from and why it matters. Introduction. South African Parliament building. The South African Parliament in Cape Town, where political funding decisions shape the nation's democracy. South Africa's political landscape is increasingly defined by woe funds the parties that seek to govern. Among all political parties, the Democratic Alliance DA stands out as a fundraising powerhouse. Since the Political Party Funding Act came into effect in April 2021, the DA has consistently declared more private donations than any other party, receiving over R126 million in disclosed funding during the 2023-24 financial year alone. But where does this money come from, and more importantly, what does the concentration of funding from a small group of wealthy donors mean for South African democracy? Topic 1. The billionaire backer Michael Le Roux and Fynbos Capital. Business influence on politics. The intersection of corporate wealth and political influence raises important democratic questions. The most significant source of DA funding is Capitec Bank founder Michael Le Roux, one of Africa's top 20 richest individuals with an estimated net worth exceeding R18 billion through his companies Fynbos Equitite Thai Limited and Fynbos Capital Proprietary Limited. Le Roux has donated tens of millions to the DA. According to civil society organization My Vote Counts MVC, since reporting began in 2021, the DA has received 44 of its private donations from companies associated with Le Roux in April 2024 and June 2025 alone. The Fynbos Group donated a collective R55 million to the party. The loophole problem. South African Rand notes. The Political Party Funding Act's limits can be circumvented through related corporate entities. Here's where it gets controversial. Le Roux was able to exceed the R15 million annual donation limit, now R30 million, because his companies are separate legal entities. The Political Party Funding Act does not prohibit donations from related entities, a loophole that My Vote Counts argues clearly circumvents the spirit of the act. In their court papers, MVC stated, Le Roux and his entities are a glaring example of individuals dividing contributions through multiple entities to sidestep nominal thresholds. These few donors exert disproportionate influence. Underscoring the vulnerability of the current system, Le Roux's influence extends beyond money. He was reportedly part of a delegation that met with former DA leader Mmusi Maimane to ask him to consider resigning, and he authored the report the DA commissioned after its disappointing 2019 electoral performance. Topic 2. The Oppenheimer Connection: Mining Wealth and Political Power. Political donations concept. Large donations from wealthy families raise questions about political influence. Another major source of DA funding comes from the Oppenheimer family, heirs to the Anglo-American and De Beers mining fortune. In the fourth quarter of 2023-24 alone, the DA received R10 million each from MF Oppenheimer and his son Jonathan Ernest Maximilian Oppenheimer. The Oppenheimers have also funded other parties, including R15 million to Rise Mumsy from Rebecca Oppenheimer and millions to Akshonsa from Mary Slack Oppenheimer's daughter and her children. This pattern of wealthy mining families funding multiple opposition parties has raised eyebrows about coordinated political strategy among South Africa's business elite. Topic 3. Foreign funding: German and Danish liberal foundations. Friedrich Naumann Foundation. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation has been a consistent donor to the DA for years. The DA receives significant foreign funding from European liberal foundations, which is legal under South African law but politically sensitive. Friedrich Naumann Foundation FENF. The German non-profit Friedrich Naumann Foundation is the DA's most consistent foreign donor. Linked to Germany's Free Democratic Party FD and funded by Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the FENF was founded in 1958 with the explicit goal of disseminating the party's liberalist agenda to other countries. In recent quarters, FENF donations to the DA have included R1.04 million in kind for training and skills development, R888950 for monetary donations, R311547 for training programs. The foundation recently hosted a DA delegation in Germany to deepen exchanges with European institutions and liberal partners, giving them insights into German government systems and liberal campaign strategies. Danish Liberal Democracy Programme DLD. The DA also receives regular donations from the Danish Liberal Democracy Programme. Established by Venstre, the Liberal Party of Denmark, in Q3 2024-25, the DA received R790640 from DLD for its Ready to Govern Locally 2 training program. While foreign donations are technically limited to training and policy development, not election campaigns. Critics question whether this creates undue foreign influence over South African political development. Topic 4. Other corporate and individual donors. Corporate political influence. Corporate donors like Naspers and mining companies feature prominently in DA funding disclosures. The DA's donor list reads like a woe's woe of South African business. Notably, Main Street 1564 has emerged as a significant donor not just to the DA but also to RISE-MMZ and other parties, suggesting it may be a vehicle for coordinated political funding by wealthy interests. Topic 5. Why this funding model is problematic. Foreign influence concept. The concentration of political funding among a few wealthy donors undermines democratic equality. 1. Disproportionate influence of the wealthy few. The most serious concern is that a small group of ultra-wealthy donors, primarily white businessmen, exerts outsized influence over the official opposition. As economist Dr. S.N. Mafunza Muller noted, Michael LaRue funds the DA, so he also funds their court cases. He funds the civil society organizations that apply to the court to be friends of the court in court cases. And he funds the media houses that report on all of that. Muller posed a critical question. How do you think as an ordinary person you're going to be able to get accurate information on, for example, woes corrupt and woes not, woes good and woes bad? 2. Circumvention of legal limits. Campaign Legal Center. Campaign finance laws are meant to limit influence, but loopholes allow circumvention. The Political Party Funding Act's R15 million limit, now R30 million, was designed to prevent any single donor from having too much influence, but by donating through multiple related entities, wealthy individuals can effectively bypass these limits entirely. My Vote Counts argued in court, this loophole effectively allows a single donor or a tight circle of donors to circumvent the cap, thereby undermining the very purpose of having a limit in place. 3. Foreign ideological influence. The DA's reliance on German and Danish liberal foundations raises questions about whether a South African political party should be so closely aligned with European liberal agendas. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation explicitly exists to promote German liberalism abroad, a form of ideological export that some view as foreign interference in domestic politics. 4. Undermining political equality. South African Rand. Wealth inequality in political funding creates unequal political voice. The Parliamentary Budget Office has noted that the concentration of funding among a few parties raises concerns about equitable representation and that smaller parties, particularly those with less financial support, may struggle to compete effectively, limiting voter choice and undermining democratic inclusivity. When one party can raise R126 million in a year while smaller parties struggle to survive, the playing field is anything but level. 5. Lack of transparency below the threshold. DA logo. The DA logo, South Africa's official opposition and biggest fundraiser. Parties don't have to disclose donations under R10000200. My Vote Counts found that in 2020-23, more than 20% of all private donations received by the DA were below the threshold. This means significant funding sources remain hidden from public view. 6. The DA opposes stronger transparency. Parliament building. The DA has consistently opposed efforts to strengthen political funding transparency. Perhaps most tellingly, the DA has opposed My Vote Counts court applications to strengthen the Political Party Funding Act. When MVC sought to have the act declared unconstitutional for failing to ensure adequate transparency, the DA was the primary opponent. DA MP Adrian Roos claimed there is no evidence that wealthy donors making significant contributions to certain parties exert influence over policy priorities, a statement that many find difficult to believe. Conclusion: democracy at stake. The DA's funding model represents a fundamental challenge to democratic equality in South Africa. When a single billionaire can provide nearly half of a major party's private funding, when foreign foundations can shape party training and development, and when legal limits can be easily circumvented through corporate structures, The promise of equal political voice for all citizens is undermined. As my vote counts argued in court, the PAFA is woefully inadequate in respect of providing access to and full disclosure of all private funding information and further fails to safeguard against the scourge of corruption. Undue influence exercised by private interests over elected representatives and the insidious effects of patronage in our democracy. For South Africa's democracy to thrive, political funding must be transparent, equitable, and free from undue influence, whether from domestic billionaires or foreign foundations. The current system, exemplified by the DA's funding web, falls short of these ideals. Key statistics. This article is based on publicly available disclosure reports from the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa and reporting by Ground Up, Newsday, and other South African media outlets.